And boom, welcome to the final Tuesday interview of 2021. Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock, we are interviewing someone awesome here in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel, Facebook group, and anybody that's on Zoom. This is the last one for Tuesday. So we're gonna do a bit of a review for what we think were some of the top takeaways and things that everyone should call out from 2021. We'll do that for the first 30 minutes. And then we'll have a new chapter midway through this call, and we will focus on vision casting for 2022, what we have as some predictions for the year, and some things that we think y'all should focus on. So I'm Dave Savage, CEO of Mortgage Coach. Joining me on this call is not a special guest, but co-host of the Friday Mastermind, and it seems like more and more the also co-hosting this Tuesday call. What's up, Todd?
You know, not a whole lot. I have to say, I do have this call now hard-coded in my calendar for 2022 to be here on Tuesday. And then, yes, we will do the true final call of the year will be Friday when we're going to do another fireside chat. So I'm super excited for wrapping up the year on Friday. But I think this is a good pre-call to that call. I feel, we all know we want to hear from you guys. So if you have favorite calls or moments from 2021, love to have you put that down below if you're in Facebook or over in the Zoom chat. And, it's just always great. And I think it's been a lot of fun as, as I've migrated over to this call. We also have the wonderful, fabulous head of Plug and Play SM, Deborah Bird, here to talk to us as well today.
Good morning. And, likewise, Todd, this is time blocked in my calendar every Tuesday and Friday. And ironically, even before I was, on these calls, helping, interview and host, this was time blocked in just to help with content creation. Having the interviewers sometimes pull up their best TCAs and watching you and Dave kind of break them down. It's such a wealth of knowledge that people can use in their own social media. So I'm glad to be here, not only to help interview and do these chats, but I also go back and I rewatch these and I study them, because sometimes when you're in the moment and you're listening, you don't always capture everything. And so I'm glad to be here and be on these calls throughout the year, and excited for today.
Well, I am too. And Deborah, I was thinking of what are some of the biggest gifts in the Mortgage Coach community that happened in 2021? And you were really high on the list, that you became a regular in this community and you've delivered so much value to it. So the only unfortunate thing is that I went back and I was like, well, when did I first interview Deborah? And it was actually in November of 2020. So that was when we found out that you were the marketing nerd behind the marketing nerd. And you and Deborah did a call. And for anyone that did not check it out, totally worth checking out. Again, it is last year, but it's how to market your rent versus own on social media with Denise Donahue, market nerd, and Deborah Bird. So anyways, you became a regular this year, and then now you're just one of the biggest gifts of 2021.
Well, Dave, I was thinking about that too, and how proud I am of you for, I think it was Shannon. Sorry, my voice was gone this weekend, so I sound like a smoker of 30 years. I apologize. But you have done such a great job with getting our names right, where that was the joke, is like everyone was going to do a shot every time either you called me Denise or you called Denise Deborah. So good job for the dyslexic kid who, struggles with that. You've done great.
Yeah, well, I've had a year of practice, and I do get it right after a long period of time. It just takes me time to get all those things straight in my head.
Hey, we all grow at different rates.
Yeah, right. So let's see, we've got a little lighter audience than we normally have, but we got a great audience. So I would love for this to be one of those most engaged, most audience contributed calls. So we're gonna kick it off, and we're gonna talk about takeaways, things to review from 2021. But if you're active in this community and you've got some things like, gosh, this quote or this interview, something you really pulled from this community, it could have been a post in our Facebook group, but something that really you remember, and it's had a lot of value to you this year, and maybe it's going to have a lot of value to you going forward. Let us know what that is. I've got some notes on what I've taken in my review, but I'll go last. And why don't we kick it off with, well, since Deborah is the newest co-host, let's kick it off with Deborah. And guys, let's try to talk for like, I don't know, 3-ish minutes each, and then just go around. We've got 25 minutes until halftime. So let's just go back and forth for 3 minutes at a time. Deborah, what were some of your biggest takeaways from 21?
So for me, oh, sorry. You there?
Yeah, we see you.
Okay. For me personally, starting on a personal level, and I don't know how many people know this. I know a lot of people who were on the calls kind of heard the experience, but I had caught viral meningitis, which then turned into occipital neuralgia. And ironically, as I was going through that process, I started to relate it to, of course, the mortgage experience and mortgage process, because that's what's always on my mind. But I can tell you, I took for granted my health. And, you know, Todd and you both know I don't eat the best. I joked with Jonathan Roach how I need his help, because I know my areas of weakness were sleep. My brain is always charged. I'm a fast thinker. I'm always, moving on to the next thing. And so it's hard for me to fall asleep and get good rest. And so some of the investments that I've made in that, and what I've started tracking is, I bought the Oura ring thanks to you and Todd, where you guys both had that ring on. I'm like, what is that thing? And it's like you get addicted to your readiness score and how you're performing and what things you need to tweak to have that optimal energy level. And so I realized how important health is for every area of life. And, I'm almost 40, I'm not there yet, but I've got to do a better job on my intake on water and the foods that I eat, because I learned during this viral meningitis, it was a struggle. I would go to the doctor and they would send me home and they would say, oh, it's COVID. It made me think of that family who goes to the loan officer who's trying to get pre-qualified, and they're told, okay, it's going to take about a day. And so you're antsy. You're like, every hour feels like a day, because you're just wondering, am I going to be pre-approved so I can buy this home? And sure enough, a day goes by and I didn't hear from the office. So I'm the one proactively having to call the doctor's office, which I'm annoyed at this point, to try to figure out what my results are. Of course, they still didn't have them. This happened 3 times. And then finally, the nurse would call like the next day. So that made me think of the loan officer assistant, right? Or the LP1 calls and says, well, your results came back and they were negative. And I was kind of like, okay, great. Now what? Because I still feel like I'm dying. And now that we know it's not COVID, like, what is this? And it made me think of those borrowers who either, get pre-qualified and they don't immediately qualify because there's credit issues, or maybe there's debt to income challenges with student loans, and you're not given a plan of what to do next. And so I was proactively having to go back and, I called the office and they said, well, if you're still experiencing pain, you're going to have to meet with the doctor. I'm like, okay, cool. Can I talk to the doctor? And they were like, well, no, you'd have to schedule an appointment. And I'm like, all right, I'm dying. And all they could tell me was, well, if you're in that much pain, you just need to go to the ER. So 3 ER trips later, and what most were just, they weren't uniquely seeing me. They weren't taking the time to ask me what my real symptoms were. They were just going through the motions, and they immediately were thinking it's COVID. And so every time I would get the thing up my nose and they would send me home and they would just say, it's likely COVID, you're going to have to wait it out. And every time the results were negative. And so during that experience, I learned how important a team is. And, I had members on the team, Sydney Savage, who stepped up, and it was probably outside of her comfort zone to have to take on the lead role of plug and play, where she was, we were adopting new systems and tools at that time. And, I will always have such gratitude for her and our chief of design team, that they just really took over. And even my twin, Denise, she came in and she even pretended to be me on a few sales calls. And she was completely humbled at how many people would reference her account when, she would ask, who are some social media accounts that you look at and that you like? And, when her name kept popping up, I don't know why she was so surprised. I tell her this all the time. But, so that entire experience just made me realize, one, I've got to grow up. I'm getting to the age where, just because externally I may not be obese, internally my organs are dying. And so if you want to be at that optimal energy level, it really starts with how much sleep you get and the nutrients you take in, and not taking those great health days for granted, because those, I love life. Made me think of Josh Metal at Amplify Live when he talked about his COVID experience. And there were some moments where I was like, if this is my new normal, like this is awful. And so I'm thankful for the doctors and nurses that actually took the time to uniquely see me and dive deeper. And, 3 spinal taps later, here I am.
I remember when that story was happening, and it's awesome that you got some life lessons from it. No doubt, sleep matters, health matters, and one of my big takeaways from reviewing 21, is that teams continue to gain market share. So write that down, guys. Teams continue to gain market share. Mortgage Coach, we study who are the top loan officers in America, how many loan officers do over 100 loans a year, how many loan officers do over 300 loans a year. We study that data, and there are more teams than ever doing over 300 loans a year and over 500 loans a year. So teams matter, team first culture. Todd, what were a few of your takeaways, or maybe you had one like Deborah?
I had a lot of takeaways. So the first thing I have to do is definitely give props to you, Dave, because as I was going through to review, all right, which of the calls really that I think were most impactful for 2021, and I think will help people launch in 2022, I was again reminded of just how much time you've committed to creating content for the community. I mean, there's just so many interviews in there. I mean, we do Tuesdays and Fridays, and then you've got some weeks where you had, every single day had one or more additional interviews you threw in there. So I think, Deborah just said, hey, she's spending time to go back and review calls. I would put on the top of your to-do list right now, go over to the YouTube Mortgage Coach channel and really think about what is it that you feel like you need to be getting better at. And then make sure you watch those videos. My hack always is, I was watching some this morning on double speed, just to kind of get some reminders and just know that's really what the best of the best are doing, right? The best of the best are improving daily by spending time as part of the morning routine to be better. And so, for me, a lot of it revolved, Dave, around our experience this year going to the Positive Impact Summit that Jonathan Roach put on, back in Vermont, and really how that impacted. So as I was looking through, what am I looking at personally as I'm reflecting on 2021, it was really a deep dive into being better. So, Deborah already hit on health, and, we talked about that a bunch. We've even had some fun calls on here with Kevin Kaufman where we've talked about that. But I really think that if I want to, talk about that one, and then I'll talk a little bit about a couple of my other big takeaways in a few minutes as we go through round 2. But I'll bring up what I thought had number 2. I'll do that one now because I think it plays well off of what Deborah said. And it was the call with Jonathan that Deborah and I did recently on becoming a world-class master guide. And so one of the things that I do now every day, and my top 3 that I put in my planner, is BWC, be world-class. And to me, it's a reminder of, how do I want to show up? How do I want to have people see me, right? His whole goal is you should be a world-class master guide. You should be world-class yourself, but you should be helping others become world-class. And I'd like to think that's what we're doing here, every time that we get on a Mortgage Coach call. And my big takeaway from that conversation that we had with Jonathan was, how do I want to spend my 75? So what Jonathan did was he kind of broke it down. He said, you have 168 hours a week. If you sleep 7 hours a day, that's 49 hours. So you have about 120 hours left in the week. If you work 9 hours a day, that's 45 hours. That leaves you 75 hours. And he said, how do you want to spend your 75 hours? And I think that's really impactful, right? I'm a big believer in morning routines. I'm a big believer in evening routines. I'm a big believer in being present, doing my best to stay off my phone when I'm around my family. And I think that that's just something that maybe we should all be reflecting on as we are exiting out of 21, heading into 2022. How do you want to spend that 75, right? Do you want to spend that 75 hours that you have outside of work and sleep on your phone? Do you want to spend that watching Netflix? Do you want to spend that unplugged, relaxing with those you love? I mean, there's no judgment here. You get to choose. However, I can tell you that I chose to be present. I chose to spend that time focused on family and friends and personal growth. And that's what I would encourage others to do.
I love that. And no doubt one of my, the term be a world-class master guide is something I had never heard until that time we spent with Jonathan in Vermont with a few other leaders. And that is one of my absolute top goals for 2022. I'll save that for when I give a breakdown on my 2022. but quality over quantity, so I'm still going to do the Friday and Tuesday call. I mean, I never did an interview every day, but there were some days where I posted them, a lot, but I'm probably only going to do 1 or 2 30-minute videos outside of the Tuesday and Friday, so that I could do more quality versus more quantity. And one of the biggest ways that I feel like I can upgrade the quality, it's creating micro content. It's taking notes. It's taking some of that content and then putting it into different formats to help lead this mortgage coach community. So stay tuned on that. So I'm going to read a couple of my takeaways from the year. And this is globally. This is, I already said one, teams continue to gain market share. The market, the purchase market continues to grow. The rate and term refi market continues to decline. Social media continues to explode. I want to, I don't think we should just call it social media anymore. I mean, I like the call we did with Renee the other day, where it's like building a leadership brand, going from building a personal brand to a leadership brand. The digital transition in the world, I mean, it's not done, but between COVID and last year, I mean, I want you to think about how much you're using Apple Pay, PayPal, Venmo, Zoom, video. I mean, and I want you to think about where we were in 2019. I mean, in like 18 months since COVID, or however many months it is, the world has changed, and it's never going to go all the way back. Well, I still believe in local referral-based businesses. How local referral-based businesses execute in this new world, it's going to be radically different. So those were a few things. To me, the 2 biggest gifts to the mortgage coach community last year in terms of concepts and ideas was the TCA a day and the CMA a day challenge. So Todd, I think I got one of those posters around here. Yep, here we go. So we sold thousands, or you sold thousands of these. Win by Noon did. I personally think this was game changing. I will talk a little bit more about that in when I do another round, and I'll already get to where I'm gonna put the number one thing I think loan officers should do is that TCA a day and help realtors do that CMA a day. I think that's a January, February, March, April, May initiative, but we'll get to that when we go. So let's see, any feedback from the community? Remember, guys, if you had a big takeaway, whether it's a trend that's relevant to the mortgage industry, whether it's some content or ideas you got from this group or our interviews, put those in chat, please. We'd love to call out what some other people think. So Deborah, let's do another round. Any other takeaways from your review of 2021?
Yeah, I would say the podcast you shared, Dave, with Coach Carvel, it has kind of rattled me and stuck with me each week, where I'm finding myself more intentionally focused around values and what those values are. What are our standards? Where do we need to put the squeeze on, whether it's our clients that we're coaching and putting them in there? Are we squeezing them to become a 1, or are they a 3? And just everything he spoke about, and specifically not necessarily the interview, but it was that podcast you shared, where I've gone back and I've watched it, and it's really, that's probably the one that has rattled in my brain the most, where I'm constantly checking myself. And I know I shared this with both of you, but if anyone listening hasn't already seen King Richard, the father, it's a Will Smith movie. It's the father of the Serena Williams, the sisters, Venus and Serena. I would highly recommend you watch that before Friday. And it goes back to having a plan and how committed are you to your plan. And to me, that's just part of your values and your standards. And it ties in nicely with the TCA a day, where I honestly feel like, just from the truth of the numbers that we saw, if you are a branch manager, sales manager, VP, I would recommend for Q1, like that is a standard that is implemented. And the good news is you can go back and watch those masterminds we did with Jeremy, and you can see how he led it. And that is the level of excellence that I'm holding just, my own team to, while also uniquely seeing people for who they are and making sure that we're showing and amplifying those unique value traits of each client that we serve on social, because that is where the trends are headed, where it is a requirement to be authentic and genuine and show up where, I think Dave, you were telling me even Sid was asking for a specific camera for Christmas that wasn't an iPhone because of the filters. And it's that generation where they don't want, if anything smells filtered or branded, they're like, I don't want it. They want real and authentic. Isn't that right? Didn't she ask for?
Yeah. She's like, Dad, I want this camera. It was our Christmas list. I'm like, Sid, you got an iPhone? And she's like, well, yeah, but the way, every picture you take is filtered and manipulated and not just raw. And I want to control that raw photo. By the way, Chrissy, it was King Richard is the movie. Check it out. I also watched it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It shows how those girls came from nothing and they stuck to a plan, even when people tried to tell them to do things differently. And here he created 2 world-class champions. It kind of goes back to being world-class. What does it take to be world-class? Well, it comes back to what you do daily. And are you focused on improving daily? And do you have a plan? And how committed are you to the plan? So Coach Carvel, that podcast you shared has really stuck with me, and I've used it in my own life and with my clients.
Love that, guys. We'll put a link down below to the interview. And if you're watching the interview in YouTube, there's a link down below to the original podcast where we discovered him. And it was one of the 2 best podcasts that I listened to in 2021. And check it out. Todd, final round for you on 21 review.
21 review, again, it was so hard. And I love that we brought up Coach Carvel, and I love the idea of standards. So I'll talk about that as we head into 2022. And, I filtered through and I wanted to say, well, what of the real estate agent content did I think was most valuable, most impactful? And so I went with how to talk to 25 realtors this week. And it was around the events that we did. I was really proud of the fact that we did not 1, but 2 modern real estate summits. And this call, don't go back and listen to it because we're trying to sell you something we're not. But we had just some of the rock stars of our industry. It was actually one of the first calls of 2021 that we had Deborah on, one of many, but she was on there as a guest. We had Dan Keller, we had Jonathan McKinney's, we had Kelly Zitlow, we had Jody Amend. And then we had realtor Glenn Bill on there, and it was really just how to create more conversations. And this one was specific around the Modern Real Estate Summit, but I think the opportunity here is, what else do I have going on in my world that I can create 25 conversations with realtors this week? And so again, I'm stealing a little bit of thunder from what I think people need to do in 2022, but I felt like that was a missed opportunity for a lot of loan officers who didn't take advantage of what we were putting out as content in the community. And I think that, it's a big high five to those of you who actually crushed it with the events that we did, with the other ideas that we had. Again, you don't have to spend money on these ideas, not that you can't, but I think really what I would be looking at if I was looking at my gaps heading into 2022 is, well, what can I learn about real estate agents from, being in there? And, again, a great example, that would be one of my other favorite interviews, which was when we had Ryan Serhant on, and we had Shant Banogian, #1 loan officer in America, help us co-interview him. And he talked about getting big listings. Again, you didn't need to pay for that. It's a free interview that we did, and you can turn that into 25 calls to realtors today, because it's still relevant, how to get big listings. And of course, my favorite thing is he talks about what we learned in Big Money Energy, where he manages his time in 15-minute blocks. And think about that, everyone, right? Ryan Serhant is so stinking busy. He gets up at 4 a.m. every morning. He works out for 2 hours in the gym, and he manages his time in 15-minute blocks. And by doing so, he just makes sure he's laser focused, right? We've all heard of Parkinson's law, where an activity expands to the time available. And most of us say, oh, I'll do this in an hour. Well, what Ryan Serhant says is, nope, I'm gonna do this in 15 minutes. And I have to say this one thing, because it's props to my good buddy, Dave. I laughed. We haven't released it yet, but Dave and I are working on a podcast, and we did an interview with Ryan Serhant, and his team offered us 15 minutes of Ryan's time. And Dave's like, no, let's go ahead, email him back and ask for 20, Todd, because we know if he gives us 15, he's got a hard stop at 15. But if we ask for 20, then we know we really have 30 minutes. And sure enough, they gave, we have 20 minutes, and we jumped on the call with Ryan. He's like, hey, what's up, boys? We got 30 minutes. What's going on? And, props to you, Dave, for going, yep, we know what he does. He says it, he lives by it. And I think about, we use that word standard is, what are your standards? What do you live by? And how can you better manage your time as we head into 2022?
Yeah, that 15 minutes planning cycle is something I adopted last year. I think I first heard it in his book, Big Money Energy. But he did talk about it. When we interviewed him, he said it on the stage of the Modern Real Estate Summit. And that was definitely something I took from last year. So, I think, I'd be repeating if I added more things. The only thing I would add that really had a lot of impact on me, and you guys will notice the impact throughout the year, was the interview called Be our Captain of the Wealth Team with Mike Garrett. We'll put a link down below on it. One, it was the most surprising interview of the year. Like when I first said, I want to interview this guy, I knew he was a red belt, done 1,000 TCAs. I knew he was a $100 million producer. I knew I wanted to interview the guy. But it was really just kind of a generic, let's learn about this guy I've never interviewed that's a baller. And about 2/3 of the way through it, I was looking at how many videos he's created and how many views they've had. And it was like, how many times was it? Was it 450,000? It was some insane amount of video views. So he'd created a lot of TCA videos, and they had been viewed the most I've ever seen. So that was like, holy shit, how's this guy doing it? Stay tuned for an interview with him. And then out of nowhere, he starts talking about how he does financial literacy training for high school students, which is something that I think is a great business strategy, where you can get referrals from teachers, from parents, but it's also going to make you a better mortgage advisor. Like if you get so good at financial literacy training and you're partnering with CPAs and financial planners, you will be better. You will be helping the next generation, and you will be funding that with new loans. So we're going to be talking about that a lot. Big takeaway. No doubt, some words that I think of almost daily in business. Our culture beats your culture. That's definitely a mantra within the mortgage coach team. We're going to hear a lot. Character beats skill, and uniquely seen. And I think that whole uniquely seen from the Coach Carville interview is not only super powerful from a leadership and a team leadership standpoint. If a borrower feels uniquely seen, and what's the best way to do that? Ask questions, give them a TCA. You're going to win. You are going to be the obvious choice. You're going to have a client for life. And then can you systematically, consistently deliver that wow experience to that family? And we'll get more into that when we do the 2022 review. So 1 minute each. Deborah, keep it to a minute. Any last words you want to say before we turn the chapter to 22?
No, I was just going to say my favorite event that I attended, which I think is important when we talk about 2022, is I would say hands down the High Trust Sales Academy. That is Todd Duncan's. It's like a 4-day boot camp. That was by far the best learning event that was hands-on that I had attended this year.
So Robert, could you get a link to that? I don't know if it's toddduncan.com between Deborah, and let's get a link to that. There's no doubt, High Trust Selling, one of my, all-time, it's my favorite Todd Duncan book, but it's one of my all-time favorite books. And Mortgage Coach TCA, competitive advantage. So guys, put that on your bucket list. I think going to an Amplify event. I know Renee's got a big one coming up in a few months. We'll put a link down below to that. And going to a Todd Duncan event. By the way, 2022 is going to be Sales Mastery 30th anniversary. So it's going to be pretty epic. I will be there. Todd, 1 minute or less.
Of course, if we're talking to Bench, you mentioned Amplify Live. I think that was a game changer this year because so many of us got out of our shells and got to see each other in person for the first time or in a while, oftentimes. And so, I think really when I look back at 2021, you can't rewind the clock, right? There's nothing, you can't do it different because it's over. And I think the bottom line is it's an opportunity for you to sit down and reflect on 2021, right? What did I do that worked? What did I do that worked okay and needs improvement? What did I do that didn't work that I need to stop doing? And then what is it that I want to start doing, right? So spend some time in reflection. I feel like the best of the best do a really good job, not just looking forward, but before they look forward, they look backwards. And so I would just encourage you, if you haven't already spent time on it, spend a few minutes looking back on the year, and what lessons can you learn from yourself? And then, of course, obviously, what can you learn from our community?
So a couple comments came in. Jeremy Baxter, HTS, High Trust Sellings, was mind-blowing. I'm planning to attend my first Amplify this year. Great decision, Jeremy, and thank you for the feedback. John Major, High Trust was my #1 highlight for sure. Lance Powell, Deborah, I would agree. It was a pleasure spending a few days with you. Look forward to a great 2022. And Jeff Nunley, High Trust Selling was amazing. So we got a lot of validation around that. Everybody give Todd Duncan a text, tell him how much you appreciated that event and what it meant to him. I know that what fires up Todd more than money is making an impact and making a difference. So send him a note.
Can I say that everyone at my table at High Trust Sales Academy had a win by noon planner? And we came from all different parts. So I'm like, if you're a winner and you crave improvement and you're trying to master the high trust relationship selling, which would have to include a TCA in that, it was ironic that everyone at my table had a win by noon planner. So that's just a small little plug for those who, if you haven't already gotten your planner, go check it out, go online, adopt it, and win by noon.
Right on, guys. And when the Win by Noon store is adding a couple Mortgage Coach t-shirts to the store. So go out there, get a Win by Noon shirt, get a Mortgage Coach shirt, and cool. Well, let's change the chapter or move the chapter, the book, to 2022. Now, guys, we're going to dedicate this Friday's fireside chat. It will all be about business planning, execution. We'll dedicate the whole call to 2022 because it will be the last day of the year. And so just know that we'll talk about that in more detail. If you do have questions that you want us to cover this Friday, put them down below. We'll be there. I know I'll be there. Todd, are you confirmed for this Friday?
I am confirmed for this Friday.
And Deborah, you are invited. You confirmed? And you don't have to if you don't want to. Okay, you're confirmed. Also, I got one action so far from this call. I'm gonna figure out who to invite, and I'm gonna schedule sometime, early in January, how to have 25 realtor conversations next week. So given today's market, given what we know, how do some of the best leaders in our community, how are they gonna get 25 realtor calls next week? So stay tuned for that. If you have someone you want me to invite to that call, let me know, but I made that to do just a minute ago. So Todd, why don't you go first on this? It's time to, vision cast for 22, whether you want to predict rates or predict something that's going to happen, or you just want to give some leadership advice as Mr. Win by Noon. You get the first round. Try to keep it to 3-ish minutes.
I'll leave the predicting of rates to Darren Rawich. I just tell everyone, just pretend they're going to go higher and use my script that, my crystal ball is a little foggy. And that would be that. I think really when it comes to 2022, to vision cast, right? I know you're going to talk about being captain of the wealth team. So let me talk about being the partner that your real estate agents need, right? Your real estate agents are getting attacked on every level. Dave said that the data is there for the mortgage industry, that we are thriving as teams. Well, guess what? Real estate is the same, right? The big teams are dominating, right? In most markets, Zillow doesn't sell leads anymore. They actually give leads to the biggest and best teams with the highest discipline with conversion rates, and they track that, right, incessantly, and then they take a referral fee from those agents. And so what's happening is that the bigger teams in most markets that I've studied are getting bigger, and the individual agent is struggling more. Now, you could also draw a correlation to the mortgage industry, where last year active licenses went up 40%, right? So 40% it went up. And so therefore you're going to have to fight next year with 40% more people. Again, I think a lot are probably going to go out of the business, right? Those who aren't in this community, aren't doing the TCAs, aren't seeing their clients uniquely like Dave talked about. are going to be gone. But the bottom line is you need to be the most valuable resource for your real estate agents. So my action plan around that would be to go back to the YouTube channel. I'd be looking up, our interview with Cody Gibson, our interviews we did with Kevin Kaufman, figure out what real estate agents we interviewed that you can glean some information of, so that when you make your calls, you have something to discuss. You're not calling realtors because you've got call reluctance. And the only way to overcome call reluctance is to have a plan around that. And so I taught a couple of business planning classes. They're on the Win by Noon YouTube channel. Feel free to watch them. We have our free business planning tool at winbynoon.com/business planning tool. We try to keep it easy and plan your business for next year. But you've got to be really, really, really pig-headed around going after real estate agents and figuring out what that is going to look like. And, ultimately, I'll talk a little more about setting standards in a couple of minutes, but that would be really my focus for all of you, is to think about your real estate agent plan, because that is going to be your easiest route to more referrals outside of your database and outside of being the captain of the wealth team. You're muted, Savage.
I love the focus you put on agents, because there's no doubt it's going to be a purchase first market in 22. I mean, who knows? Dan says there is a paradigm where, the economy is doing so poorly that rates come down, but we got to plan on purchase first market. And if you're just crazy if you have not watched the 6-minute video from Denise Donahue, the mortgage nerd, saying how to blow the minds of group realtors. It's only 6 minutes. It is a micro presentation from one of the modern mortgage summits, or from the last modern mortgage summit. It's in the YouTube channel. We'll put a link down below. It's only 6 minutes. Watch it. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Deborah, what are some of your biggest, predictions and trends, and anything you want to say about 22?
So I'm going to say, and, Kevin Kaufman, he hit on this in both the interviews we did with him. It's going to be about your relationships. So yes, we need to focus on real estate agents, and yes, it's going to be a purchase first market. But if you're trying to acquire new agent relationships and you're wanting to provide value, it always starts with relationships. And so in my group, I tell them, rock, paper, scissors, relationships trumps every time. You've got to go to the events that they are going to. And that was one of the tips that Kevin shared. Go where they're going to learn, and be intentional when you're there, and then come back and hold your own monthly masterminds. Again, I'm going to say this every time we have these conversations. If it's the first Wednesday, say at noon on every single month, I really encourage you to get back to the face-to-face masterminds where you can, stream one of the quick 3 to 5 minute talks from the Modern Real Estate Summit, and then find out what their pain points are and go solve them by providing value. But you've got to deepen the relationships, or someone else out there is trying to date your agents and will try to take them from you. And so I think it's no different than when you're married. You've got to continue to date your spouse. And we hear about this all the time. It's no different than when you're married with an agent relationship. Don't get too comfortable where you stop courting and you stop doing the handwritten notes, or the breaking bread, and having deeper conversations where you're uniquely seeing them again and finding out not what you think is valuable. Because a lot of times I see loan officers present information when they haven't even asked what the pain points are of the agents that they're, serving, to find out what is value to them. Don't just assume. Ask the questions, talk less so you can sell more. And so I would push everyone for 2022 to try to host your own monthly mastermind that's face-to-face, and be really intentional on relationships. I know I failed the last year or two with my handwritten notes. I got tired of sending handwritten notes, and I would later find out that, people weren't in the office, they weren't getting them. So it is on my list that I'm going to get back with my planner, and I'm going to be real intentional of doing my handwritten notes again.
So let me throw something in there real quick, Dave. Let me jump in just on the go to the events where the realtors are. That's easier than you think. I would tell you that. So my market's Phoenix, Arizona. And I would tell you that I went to every Keller Williams event that there was, right? I went through Bold. I went to you name the event, I went to it. And that is why the leaders of these big teams saw me as somebody that they wanted to mastermind with. So think about what events are going on. Like we have a lot of teams right now trying to recruit that are hosting bi-weekly lunches. And don't show up and be the guy. I went to one that I got invited to, and literally there was a guy, and he went around with his business card, and he's shaking everyone's hand and handing their business card. And I was on the phone, he's throwing his card in my face, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, Todd, thanks for not being that guy who's going around and throwing his business card in everyone's face." So learn to network, in a positive way, but ultimately be at those events. I mean, that in the end is going to give you the content to your masterminds that Deb's talking about you should be doing. And more importantly, that's how you're going to learn these people, learn what these people are learning and set up that follow-up conversation with them. Hey, I would love, Dave, to get together to learn a little bit more about you and your business. Hey, I really enjoyed meeting you last Friday at the whatever group lunch, and would love to see if you could just get together. And I'd love to hear what your top takeaways are, right? It's not that difficult if you are confident and taking notes.
So I do agree relationships with agents are at a premium, but I'm going to give advice that to me is a little, you're probably not expecting it. So if purchase market is the key focus and if agents are the number one priority, my advice is your borrower experience, your perfect, consistent borrower experience should be your number one priority, and how you manage and continue to wow your past customers. If you are a wow, you're doing annual reviews, you're giving borrowers total cost analysis, you have this amazing convertible experience, and I would push everybody to measure your conversion rate, brag about your conversion rate, measure your customer satisfaction, brag about your customer satisfaction, know your price exception score. How often are you having that unconstructive tension conversation where you're negotiating a price exception? And if you make that your number one priority, then you got to do everything that Deborah and Todd said, and you need to you need to call 25 realtors. But if you are a wow mortgage coach loan officer and you are delivering a wow experience to every family that you serve, like it's unique, it's better. You're going to show up different with those realtors. You're going to have a different level of confidence. You're going to be able to have a different conversation. When you talk to the agent, you're like, I'm going to help you make more money. I'm going to improve your conversion. Let me show you how. You're just going to do that differently. That's how Jeremy Forcier kills it with agents, is he's got a perfect, consistent borrower experience. I do think, every loan officer that's, in the $100 million range, I don't know too many of you that can't upgrade your annual review process and how you're treating your past customers. I'm going to push you guys to hire another team member this year that's designated to be that client concierge that gets comped on your past customer pull-through rate. Like, here's a measurement I want everybody to measure next year. And I want to be able to quiz you. How many past customers do you have? How many past client loans did you do last month? Divide it. And if it's not at least 1%, so if you've got 100 past clients, that's one loan a month. If you've got 1,000, that's 10 loans a month. If you've got, 2,000, well, anyways, you can do the math, guys. Make sure it's one a month. And you know what that do? That will get you at least to a 12% annual past customer pull-through rate. Now, by the way, excellence is 20%. Like, I do know loan officers that have a 20% past customer pull-through rate. And then if rates do drop and it becomes a refi tidal wave, it'll spike. It'll go to 30, 40% past customer pull-through rate. So if it's a purchase market, make your borrower experience your number one priority, make your past customer relationships a priority, and you'll kill it. Because here's the deal, guys. You'll have more confidence. And you know what? You're also going to get referrals to purchases. And your past clients are buying homes. So that's my advice. Let's do another round. Todd, any comments to that or any new things?
Yeah, let me give a couple of comments on yours. So Paul's asking about how do you find those agent meetings that I referred to. And so in my market, it's Facebook, right? It's watching what the agents are posting. And I would tell you the people who are hosting those types of meetings I see are two groups. And oftentimes it's the same people doing both. One is any team that's trying to recruit, right? They're leading these masterminds to get other agents to show up so they can recruit them, or They are investors. They lead teams, and they're also trying to get leads for flips, leads for wholesale transactions. So look at who are the big real estate teams that are doing investor transactions, because that's what we see here in our market. And I really think, Dave, you kind of nailed it on the whole buyer experience and in the annual mortgage review piece. So I guess that would be my next piece is really, what does your annual mortgage review process look like in 2022? I know Dave's going to talk about the TCA a day. I'll tell you, over in the Win by Noon community. So if you just look on Facebook for Win by Noon user mastermind group, I'm going to continue. I did it for the last quarter. I'm going to start it up again next week. Probably be Mondays midday. And so for some of you East Coast, it'll be a little bit later. It's a terrible time to do it, but Dave has every other good time already taken by Mortgage Coach. But I'm going to do a weekly call, 30 minutes, typically hour tops, where really focusing on a strategy around CMAs or TCAs a day. But the bottom line is Dave talked about getting this past client pull through rate up. And the easiest way to do it is doing TCAs and annual mortgage reviews. And I find that most the loan officers I'm talking to do not have a plan for that in 2022, because they all think I've already refinanced them and there's not going to be an opportunity there. But I think it's actually a perfect opportunity to ask them for a referral to their best realtor. It's a perfect opportunity to get the rest of the people on your wealth team, filled in by asking them for those referrals, and really just setting up their next move, their next cash out refi, and their next referral. And so that would be my other encouragement. If you have a great experience, perfect part of your experience needs to be the annual mortgage review process.
Love that. And Michelle, I just gave you a link to schedule 15 minutes with me. Would love to know more. And my email, anybody that wants to email me, it's dave@mortgagecoach.com. Deborah, you want to do another round of suggestions, predictions for 22?
Well, I want to add to that because I personally feel like the biggest mistake I see Mortgage Coach users make is they keep this from a one-to-one conversation. And you're right. You witness the wow experience when you're presenting a TCA to a borrower. I mean, it's almost like you can see their brain is being reshaped and they're having this aha moment. I call it when the penny drops. As well as when, and I can't remember who made the post, but it was recent in the Mortgage Coach group, of someone saying they needed assistance with structuring the TCA. They sent it to the listing agent and they won the deal. And it's like, that is a great, like, we know that is a wow experience from a one-to-one. But what I challenge everybody for 2022, with where all the trends are headed, you have got to showcase how you think differently using social, making this a one-to-many. And you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to have, $6,000 worth of studio equipment. I love Kyle Whistle's photo that he posted with like a cardboard box and his iPhone turned around, where you share a advanced mortgage strategy, no different. One of the ones I used today for my marketing was Josh Meadows' example that is in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel on how to attract financial advisors. And he showed how someone was going to purchase a home and put 20% down, but he would have no liquidity after that. Absolutely no money left in the bank. He hadn't been putting money in for his retirement, yet their income was strong. So showcasing unique situations of families and how you help solve those problems by showing them options and how they impact you over time has got to be in your time block. Carve out 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking for, 10 minutes a week. How many minutes do we have left over in a week, Todd? After that?
75.
Okay, so if you had 15, make Tuesday your TCA Tuesday, pick your favorite example from the last 7 days. Just go back in the last week of a TCA that you created that really showcases how you are different. You're not the Rocket Mortgage out there. Those who are, continuing to use the PDFs of the itemized fee worksheets, you will be replaced by the robots who are actually doing really well. I mean, they're having great close times and good service, and they're getting it done. So how can you show the solutions as a solutionist to families that you think differently, and don't keep it a secret? Don't just make it one-to-one. Wow everybody on your social feed so that they know where to go when they need good advice, because they all need a captain and they don't know where to go to find the captain. So be the captain, just don't make it a secret.
Yeah, be their financial friend, that trusted advisor that educator, the one that helps everyone build wealth with real estate. So not just a loan officer who could close a loan on time at a competitive interest rate, but that leader. Deborah, could I challenge you? I'm not going to ask you for the whole year because I think that's too big of an ask, but could I challenge you for the month of January, every Tuesday, to post something in the Mortgage Coach Facebook group that's a reminder that, hey, it's TCA Tuesday, it's one-to-many day, and then give an idea, so it's a reminder and an idea for the community. Is that something you'd be willing to take on?
Absolutely. I literally consume that information. I consume the Mortgage Coach, between Mortgage Coach, Keeping Current Matters, Tom Ferry. I mean, those are my sources that I consume like oxygen to be able to provide content like this. So absolutely, I will do that every Tuesday in January.
So guys, we would love your participation. If we feel like it's getting a lot of engagement, likes, comments, and then we're also seeing it on social media where you guys are doing these one-to-many TCA Day challenges, maybe we'll keep it going past January, but we will kick off the new year with a reminder from Deborah.
And Dave, I would even say if anyone listening to this has a TCA link that they'd want to send me to use as my example of how I would story tell, shoot it to me. I'll be more than happy to use your TCA link as an example so then you can go duplicate.
Love that. And then the challenge I'm going to put out there for everybody in the Mortgage Coach community, a specific call out to every branch manager or leader of loan officers on this is to kick off January with a TCA Day challenge. Remember, I believe that your borrower experience and then how you continue to deliver value to that past customer, it should be your number one priority in 22. And there's no better way to do that than have a TCA Day challenge. I just put a link to my LinkedIn article that I wrote. Jeremy Forcier did it for 1 month for his own region. He did it for 60 days for the community. And everybody's conversion went up by 20%. Everybody's price exceptions went down by even more. Everybody got more confident. So guys, that is my challenge for 2022. That is my challenge for January. If you were a leader or a manager, do this for your team. Best gift you could give them, and you have a playbook of how to do it. Check it out. There's also like a 20-minute interview I did with Jeremy where he did a debrief after he did this challenge. So check it out. Would love to hear about that. So guys, we have less than 10 minutes left. I don't know if there's any questions we've missed or comments that we haven't called out. I did see Kyle Allen just said, great stuff. Appreciate working along with me this year. Grateful for you guys and have new business this time next year. Right on, Kyle. Thank you for sharing and keep rocking. Todd, we're in the closing thought part of this call. So any closing thoughts?
Well, I think my closing thought is, do what Dave just challenged Deborah to do, right? Make a commitment. Just make it for January, right? You should make it for the whole year, but let's just make a commitment for January of what you're going to commit to doing, right? We did an interview in 2020 with Andrew Paul, Navy SEAL, about how they set standards, right? So what is your standard? So I can tell you right now, I mean, again, Dave and Deborah do this all the time. I got called out on this morning. Deborah's challenged me to go to Time Block every Monday morning for a quick 5 minutes with me where I talk about the Win by Noon weekly quote and how it applies to business. So, of course, now I'm stuck doing that, right? So now it's going to be a standard that I set for myself. I'm going to be committed to doing it. So my question for you is, number one is, what do you need to commit to that you keep thinking you should do that you're not doing? And it could be TCA Tuesday, it could be something else. And then number two, who is it in your circle that's going to keep you accountable? Because guess what? I just said it. So not only are you going to all go, oh, Todd didn't do that thing he said he was going to do on the Mortgage Coach call, but I've got Dave and Deborah here who are going to bug me every week if I don't do it. So therefore I'm going to get it done, right? It's just one of those things where you've got to make that commitment to yourself. So I would just look at that and say, well, what standards am I going to set for next year for myself? You're going to have to be really intentional around it. So three of my big words is commitment, standards, and intentional, right? I've got to be super intentional with my time in 15-minute blocks. And I'm going to make sure that I do the things that I commit to. And then you also have to say no to the other things, right? Like Deborah, I suck at handwritten notes. I keep saying I'm going to get good at it. You know what? It's on my list. I haven't done it. So for me, I'm going to throw that one out the window so I can be committed to these other things that I want to do. And I would encourage you to do the same.
So that is something I'm going to get a little ahead of the fireside chat. but I would urge everybody, if you haven't already done this, start making a list of what did you do last year that you're going to say no to. You know what, if you're going to start doing some new things, you're going to have a better year than you did last year. You're going to have to start some new things. You have to create some new habits, and usually that means you need to stop some other things. So everybody start making your stop list. I'm going to stop doing this, and come to this fireside chat in a couple days. This Friday, 9 o'clock. We will be put on a fireside chat that's really just focusing on how to go to whatever next level is for you, how to go to the next level. Deborah, closing thoughts.
Just, recapping on culture, our culture beats your culture. I would just like to say, we're ending out the year, and although we talk about the borrower experience and our agent relationships, but don't forget to show love to your teams. And when you pour into your people pour into your clients. And so I had struggled with this probably in the last quarter. We had brought on some new teammates, and we had been growing, and I had lost some of that intentionality to stay in consistent communication with some other teammates. And so it's important that you also carve out time to make sure you're dating your teammates.
I love that. I love that. So guys in the community, if you have some questions, we're going to wrap this up in 4 minutes sharp. I'm gonna check that out. I'm not going to really add anything new to the party, because I think we've given you more homework than anyone could do. We've given you a lot of videos to watch. The only one that I haven't given that I am going to make sure it's in the mix here is Win with Rate Shoppers by Gina Myers. She was someone that I interviewed for the first time this year. She will be, if she agrees, she'll be on Scriptopalooza. And if she agrees, we'll also be inviting her to the Modern Mortgage Summit. She killed it. Her energy, her X factor. She became I don't know if she's hit red belt yet, but I think she's on pace to get it by the end of the year. I'll go check it out. So she's a new leader in our community. And it just came up in the call, like, hey, what are your biggest challenges? Oh, I'm seeing more rate shoppers. Oh, how are you winning with rate shoppers? And she's killing it. So go watch that. And that is my last prediction, guys. 2022 will be spectacular for some people, and it will be humbling for others. It is going to be more competitive. Whenever the market shifts like this, you saw the news with better.com a few months ago. I mean, there is going to be change. There is going to be struggle, and there will be winners, people that pick up market share. And I do believe just about everything we've said in this call if you implement and execute, will put you in the winner circle. And really, when you go and listen to that call with Gina, it's just implementing what I said at the beginning, delivering a consistent wow experience, and you'll win with rate shoppers. So check that out. Those are my last thoughts. Todd Bookspan, captain of Win by Noon. Any taking action? Just kind of wrap it up as a coach, if you don't mind.
Well, you just burned it in my head that 2022 will be spectacular for some and humbling for others, right? We want for you to have a spectacular 2022. And I think what that's going to take is a commitment to spending a little bit of time thinking through what we talked about here today and how it might impact your business. And if you're not scheduling it on your calendar now to get it done, it's just not going to happen, right? There's only a couple of days left in the year. And yeah, you could do it after the first year, but I would encourage you to do it this week, like maybe today or tomorrow, block out that time to really think through, what did I learn from 2021, right? We gave you some thoughts there. And then most importantly, what is it that I really am going to be intentional about? What am I going to really commit to? And what will my standards be in 2022? And I'm super excited. We could do this all day. I just love talking with you guys, with what we're doing here in the community. And I know that Friday will be a little bit of a continuation of that as we really get laser focused on 2022. So look forward to seeing you all there. I'm grateful for you, Dave, for you, Deborah, and for the whole community. Of course, Robert, you behind the scenes, and just look forward to seeing you all on Friday.
All right, guys. I am grateful for you. Little virtual fist bump for everyone. Give a punch to your camera, and we'll see you on Friday at 9 o'clock. This call is a wrap. Give us a like, share it with your friends. Take care, y'all.
All right. Peace, everyone.